Hey everybody, this is Chris DeFurio with Keys to the Shop. Welcome to another edition of Shift Break. Today's episode is brought to you by the Ground Control Cyclops Brewer from Voga Coffee. So the Ground Control Cyclops Brewer and its SCA award-winning technology extracts things from your coffee that is frankly unbelievable in terms of what you're able to coax from the coffee and control to very minute detail. With this machine, it is really leveling up the batch brew game all over the world. This machine is not only a next level batch brewer, but it can also make tea, it can make hot chocolate, batch iced lattes, batch cold brew. So there's a lot of versatility to this machine. And especially in the landscape of retail right now, we need equipment that is versatile, but is actually dependable, functional, and not just functional, but exceeds expectations. And that's what the Ground Control does. And so if you're looking to level up your batch brew experience and offer your customers the best of what your coffee has to offer and have a workhorse of a machine that's versatile in your shop, then I think the Ground Control Cyclops Brewer is what you need in your cafe. So to find out more information and to get this in your store, go to their website over at vogacoffee.com. That's VOGA coffee.com. Today's episode is also brought to you by Espressly. Espressly helps you design amazingly functional and elegant branded mobile apps. You work so hard when you're building a coffee shop and a brand so that the experience is something your customers remember. But sometimes when you have convenience options like mobile ordering, which is vital right now, especially for retailers, you sacrifice that experience. And so the question is, how do we bring the experience into this convenience product? And that's where Espressly comes in. It allows you to have that fast and convenient experience without giving up the brand experience that your customers love. It's a no-risk model. There's no setup fee. Integration with Square. There's drive-through payment scanners, receipt and label printing. Value is stored in the app. And plus, you get to keep the data. This really is something that you should look into. So to sign up today, learn more, you can go to their website over at espressly.co. That's espressly.co. Okay, everybody. Well, today I wanted to talk to you about something that I see a lot in coffee shops that I think is, well, for lack of a better word, I think it's a toxic thing that is enabled by owners. It's enabled by bosses. And it's also self-inflicted by bosses. Like bosses suffer from this too. Managers suffer from this. And it is when going above and beyond goes wrong, where it goes too far. And even going above and beyond itself as a concept in coffee or in any professional setting can be dangerous if it's not kept in its proper place. So let me explain. There's a few ways that I want to attack this today. First of all, there's the notion that I hear all the time from bosses where they expect their baristas to go above and beyond. They say, well, when you go above and beyond, that's rewarded. I want to call that out and say that's BS in a lot of different ways. I don't think that you should not reward for somebody for going above and beyond. But when we make a false dichotomy of doing the bare minimum versus going above and beyond, then the new standard is going above and beyond. You see, you're just moving the goalpost and trying to do some semantic tricks in order to retain a certain level of laziness in a job description. This is the exact same thing that happened in Office Space, where you're supposed to wear 15 pieces of flair, and there's a guy who wears 37 pieces of flair. And the boss has a hard time with an employee who, in his words, just does the bare minimum of, having the 15 pieces of flair. And their love for the one who is above and beyond is casting a shadow on the one who's not going above and beyond. And it sounds, even when you say they're not going above and beyond, it sounds bad, doesn't it? But if they're doing an amazing job in the job that you hired them to do, then they're doing an amazing job. If somebody does more, hey, that's cool. That's up to them. But you can't play this game with your employees where they have to just guess what above and beyond is. Employees need to know what to do and how to do it. They need to be coached, and they want to know how to do a good job, and they will do it. Now, people will go above and beyond just because they are excited, and that's cool. And I think you can reward that. But when you make it the expected behavior and you create a scenario where now you're basically just punishing those who are doing a good job according to what the job is and only rewarding people that go above and beyond, then you're really not being fair. And I absolutely hate that mindset. And if that's where you are right now as an owner, I can tell you that you are building up a world of cultural hurt for yourself. And the employees are just not going to be there for it. I tell you that. And the employees are just not going to be there for it. I want to say that right on the outset, that you need to question that narrative where you are withholding your affirmation and praise and support for baristas doing a great job according to the job and only giving it to the people that you think are going above and beyond. That's an unfair thing. You should really take a look at your job descriptions and create the expectations that are clear so that when people meet them, you are rewarding them. Bottom line. So now moving on, I think there are a couple ways that going above and beyond, when you do engage in that behavior of going above and beyond, which a lot of us do, especially those of us who are really passionate about coffee as, this might be our career, there are two ways that this can go sideways. The first way is something that I'm very familiar with, which is that you take on more than is your responsibility out of an insecurity for your role. Maybe there's not enough role clarity, okay? And you're trying to just do as much as you can, and maybe just by, trying the shotgun approach where you're just hoping that the spray of pellets hits something, and you're doing this like banging your head against the wall 50, 60, even 70 hours a week. There was a place that I worked 70 hours a week for months on end because I was just trying to do all I could to impress and to show that I was contributing to earn my keep. And so I had this narrative in my head that was causing me to do more than what was technically required. And I mean, my marriage suffered because of it. And thankfully, my wife is very gracious and we got through that. But the point is that oftentimes managers and people who are in mid-level positions of authority will fall on the sword in all sorts of different ways that aren't asked of them because they are just trying to prove themselves. And even if they have an amazing boss who tells them, hey, this is your work, I'm really proud of you, you're doing well, all that stuff, right? If you're in the best situation possible, you can still manufacture these false narratives that tell you that you need to be at the cafe more than is required, that you need to be available at the late hours of the night, even if you're with your family, that you need to give your blood, sweat, and tears to this, that there's some glamour in damaging yourself for the business, that's some nobility to that. And I'm here to tell you, there is not nobility in that. There's a couple of ways you can attack this. First, you have to realize, am I doing that? Like, how many hours do you work versus how many hours are required of you? If your job is 40 hours a week and you're there 50, 60 hours a week, you either have time management problems with not being able to complete your work when you are scheduled to be in the office or on bar, or you're just hanging around because you're insecure about whether or not people approve of you and your work. Here's the thing that I told a manager at one of my clients' stores who was talking to me about this, who was in that situation where they were just working too much. It was that, first of all, you need to be able to manage your time better when you're working so you get what's needed to be done. And then you need to realize that the staff don't always need you. And if you're always there, you're creating a situation where either they will always need you, and so you're sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy, or you are infantilizing them. You are treating them like children, and they are not. If you're there too much, they might just wonder, what is it that you actually do? You're just hanging out here all the time, moving stuff around, carrying a box from A to B. There's better ways for you to use your time as a manager than just, being around and just hanging out in case somebody needs you. So the effort to be there for your staff oftentimes will create a animosity between you and your staff. And that's not what you want. So, of course, there's a balance here. We classically say this is work-life balance. Let's just call it work balance. So as a manager, something that you'll probably need to do is clarify your role with your boss, get their schedule dialed in, schedule what you need to do throughout the week so that you have clear cutoff times, and then attack the mentality that you need to go and do more and more out of this insecurity of what you think other people think about you. Over time, if you do the work really well, and balance yourself. You're going to have more energy to be responsive when it's truly needed. And you can avoid having this going above and beyond thing go wrong for you. Now, the other way that I want to look at this is that bosses enable this kind of behavior. You can tell when a barista or a manager is doing this type of thing and engaging in this kind of behavior that ultimately harms them. It might even harm the business. So you have a responsibility to stop people from doing that. If it's something that you've miscommunicated, maybe they think that's what you want, you have a responsibility to explicitly tell them, that is not what I want. Here is what I want. And don't come at it as if they are the bad guys. Don't come at it as if you have no part to play in this, because often communication is at the root of why this goes wrong. So owners, people in charge, if you have people that you're responsible for, then you need to make sure that this is not creeping up in their lives, that you're helping them with their time management, making clear your expectations, helping them with what needs to get done, and maybe even taking off some of the responsibilities, not for less money, but taking away something that was an unrealistic expectation to begin with. If they've worked 35 hours on the bar and they only have 5 hours of admin time and they're a manager of a shop, that's your fault, not theirs. You should be the one that is curating their time for them and with them so that they have a realistic tool, the tool of time that we talked about before for resourcing your staff to do the job well, so they don't feel like they need to sacrifice their actual life, for the business. Okay. So going above and beyond, that's a tricky thing. When people do it, there are times when people do it where it's just like, man, that's really cool, and we can reward that. But let's not let this thing get too far, either personally and how we self-impose these things, or as bosses where we create these unrealistic expectations on our staff that cause all sorts of relational damage and damage to the person in the long run. So I hope that this is a helpful episode for you, kind of a heavy one, and maybe there's some conversations that need to be had as a result of this. So I hope it goes well for you. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you here next week on another edition of Shift Break, from keys to the shop.